Hallo und herzlich willkommen zu Love, Life and Other Stories, dein Podcast für mehr Inspiration und Lebensmut. Mein Name ist Katrin Andrea Preisner und ich freue mich sehr, dass du hier bist. Ich bin systemischer Coach und Gründerin von Heart and Mind Journey. In meiner Arbeit begleite ich Frauen, die spüren, so wie es gerade ist, kann es nicht mehr weitergehen. Die sich nach mehr Klarheit sehnen, nach innerer Ruhe und nach dem Mut, endlich ihren eigenen, ganz persönlichen Weg zu gehen. Mit Klarheit, Selbstvertrauen und innerer Freiheit unterstütze ich sie dabei, alte Blockaden zu lösen, Ängste loszulassen und kraftvolle Entscheidungen zu treffen. Mein Herzensanliegen ist es, Menschen in Phasen der Veränderung, an Lebensgabelungen oder in Momenten der Orientierungslosigkeit zu stärken, damit sie wirklich ihr volles Potenzial entfalten und ihren ganz eigenen, erfüllten Weg gehen können. Für ein Leben in tiefer Verbundenheit mit sich selbst und somit mit allen anderen. In diesem Podcast nehme ich dich mit in meine Welt, eine Welt voller Geschichten, Geschichten, die das Leben schreibt. Heute ist Kim Engström bei mir im Podcast. Eine Frau, die zeigt, dass es nie zu spät ist im Leben, nochmal neu zu starten. Kim ist ursprünglich aus den USA und lebt derzeit im indischen Himalaya im Bundesstaat Himachal Pradesh. Vor 3 Jahren hat sie ihre Wohnung gekündigt und hat sich dann auf Weltreise begeben, ohne Rückflugticket. Wie sie es geschafft hat, Arbeit und Abenteuer miteinander zu verbinden, was der Buddhismus für sie bedeutet, nicht nur als Religion, sondern als Lebensweg. Und wie sie mit Einsamkeit in Zeiten von Corona umging, darüber sprechen wir in dieser Folge. Kim erzählt außerdem, warum wir als Menschen das tiefe Bedürfnis haben, Teil von etwas Größerem zu sein. Und wie genau dieses Gefühl uns im Leben Orientierung und Halt geben kann. Und nicht nur das, sie hat letztes Jahr in Indien ihre eigene nachhaltige Modemarke gegründet. Wie es dazu kam und was sie wirklich antreibt, erfährst du ebenfalls im Gespräch. Freue dich auf ein super inspirierendes Interview über Mut, innere Freiheit und den Zauber des Neuanfangs. Ganz egal in welchem Alter. Ich wünsche dir ganz viel Spaß beim Zuhören. Hello and welcome to a new episode of Love, Life and Other Stories. I want to welcome Kim Engström today in my podcast. We met in Dharamshala at my first Buddhism course, Introduction into Buddhism, at the Tushita Meditation Center. There we were supposed to talk just once in our discussion group, and Kim was part of my discussion group, so how we met. And then actually afterwards we met a few more times, and I found her always very inspiring, her way. She quit her job 3 years back, then she was traveling through the world, then moved now to India, started her new brand, fashion brand, so she will also talk about it lately, and lots of other things. So very warm welcome to you, Kim. I'm happy that you're today in my podcast.
Oh, thanks, Catherine. I'm just so honored that you thought of me, and remember fondly that discussion group, back at Tushita, and being in this group of young, powerful women in that group. I think there was all women except one person.
Right.
And just really being inspired by all of you too, and what you were dealing with in the world and what you were taking on. And then as we continued to connect each time you came back to India, it was also an inspiration, to me. So thank you for the connection and the invitation to be here.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe you could give us a short introduction about yourself, what you're doing, where you're currently, and maybe also a fun fact about you, everything what you want to use for the introduction.
Yeah, a fun fact. Let's see. I've redefined or recreated myself multiple times. But I guess the longest term I've been anything is a mom. I have 2 daughters, one turning 30 this summer, and I don't know how that happened, and then a 26-year-old. And I've been a counselor in various capacities, also for 30 years, because I was pregnant when I did my studies, pregnant with my first daughter when I was doing my counseling studies. I left my home, everything. I started the downsizing process when my kids left for college, as you know, or some people know in the Western part of the world, you know, like the kids count down the days until they're off to college and they don't come home. And I was a single mom. So the empty nest hit me really hard. And then COVID, you know, hit me even harder. So, I had already started the downsize and empty nest process when the kids left for school. But after COVID, I had the opportunity for my practice, as a counselor, in-person practice, to go online. Something I never imagined I would do, like have an Instagram account, you know, or be doing counseling sessions on a telephone from all kinds of places. So yeah, I left. I was staring at the wall one day. My apartment lease was up for renewal, and I thought, it's time. If I can sit here and look at the wall, you know, and do counseling sessions on the phone, then maybe I can do that from anywhere in the world. And that's when my traveling journey began. A fun fact about me: I like to dance, but I'm really bad at it. I incorporate that wherever I go. And I'm recently a poetry writer, and I'm also looking at how to turn my serious side into humor, like bring some comedy to my life. You know, maybe like, I don't know how. I want to see the world like through comedy rather than through seriousness. So we'll see.
Very good thing.
That's in the next chapter.
A good vision, I would say. Yeah, very nice. Thank you for the lovely introduction. Yeah, how was it? Like when you packed all your suitcases, you left the US and you didn't know, or how did you plan it? Did you know where you want to go, or how was like the decision process?
Yeah, I had planned a trip to Guatemala during COVID that got canceled. So that seemed the logical place to start. When I got there, so that's where I started, but I had no other plan after Guatemala except to be on the road for 12 months. I didn't know how long I'd stay in any one particular place, and I didn't really have any plan as to where I'd go. So Guatemala started the year. I started the year in Guatemala at a place called Lake Atitlan. They call it the vortex of spirit. You know it, Lake Atitlan? It's like not a lot of people know about it.
Yeah, it's a very
Have you been there?
place. Yeah.
Yeah,
I was there for a yoga
spiritual
retreat once. Yeah.
Yeah, they call it the vortex, and I had no idea. You know, like people said to me, "Why Guatemala? Why are you going to Guatemala? It's so unsafe there." But my own city, I come from the East Coast of the United States. I lived in Philadelphia at the time. No, I raised my family in the suburbs. I had moved to the city, and there were, you know, the United States had racial issues going on, drug issues going on, school shootings, you know, going on. So Guatemala didn't seem that safe to me, considering what I was dealing with in the U.S. So I stayed there for 3 months. I took a month off when I started. I took a month off from my work, but then regrouped and started the whole practice back online again the second month, and lived and worked in Guatemala, or in Lake Atitlan, for 3 months. And it was about 3 weeks before my visa was to expire. You maybe know, Catherine, like travelers, we go by visa. You know, we stay in places based on the length of our visa.
True, yeah.
And mine was about to expire.
And
counting the days. And it was 3 weeks left. And I had I had a lot of anxiety at that time, social anxiety, cultural anxiety. I was exhausted a lot. So I had no idea like where I was going to go. And then, I just sort of put it to the universe. That's really when I wouldn't say it was when I started my spiritual journey, but it was definitely when my spiritual journey expanded. You can't help but have your spiritual journey expand when you're at the lake. And, that's when I sort of put it, said, all right, I'm terrified, but universe, you take over. Where do you think I should go next? And literally within like 48 hours, I got a call from a woman I'd met in Costa Rica, maybe a year or two earlier. And she had moved to Costa Rica. She was American. She had moved to Costa Rica. She was doing her visa run and she needed someone to house sit and dog pet sit at her home in Costa Rica. And that was it. Off I went to Costa Rica. And then a strange thing happened. I was denied entry into Costa Rica for, I won't go into the details, but a technical difficulty. And I was deported back to Guatemala. And if that wouldn't have stopped, yes, that was like, I don't know how that didn't stop my travel journey right then. Like, I don't know why I didn't just say, okay, Kim, you need to go home. Enough is enough. I just took it as an experience and dealt with it and did what I needed to do to get the credentials in order that I needed. And off I went back to Costa Rica. And I spent I think I spent 2 months there. Again, not certain where to go next, but starting to get homesick. The next spot was Panama, Costa Rica. I was on the border of Costa Rica and Panama. And again, the visa calling, flights, how you're always managing, like, where's the best flight and the best connections. Turned out I could leave from Panama to go back to the US. And that's what I did. For the mid part of that year, I was home just because I was homesick. But once I was home, I was only home for like 3 weeks and I needed to go back on the road again. So the first year continued. That time I left US. My younger daughter joined me in my travels. Her and I traveled through Portugal and Spain for 3 weeks, and that was magical. First time I'd really had that much alone time with my daughter, since she was a child. And that was magical, but also made me realize how much I missed my family, how much I missed my kids particularly. I think that's a long answer to your question. How did the travel journey begin?
No, very cool. But we met then in India. So what brought you then to India?
Yeah, so how did I get to India? So from Spain, Portugal, I went to France. That came out of someone I met in Guatemala who was from a town named Toulouse, France. And she was so vibrant about her city and that I chose that as my next place to go. And I spent some time in Toulouse. And from France, I went to Turkey. And then the plan was to end the year in Turkey. My older daughter joined me for traveling in Turkey. And the plan was to end the year in Turkey and then return back to the States. But some people I knew were traveling to India. And they would have been in India right at the end of my first year of travel. And since I was already in Turkey, it made sense. Like it fit like, all right, it's easier for me to go to India than it is to go from Turkey than to go back to the US. So I might as well complete my year journey in India. And at the time I applied for a 60-day visa, but you could only get a 30-day visa or a 1-year visa. That was just the visa structure at that time in 2023. So I got the year visa. I didn't ask for it. I have a saying now that I did not choose India. India chose me. And it started with giving me a 1-year visa. I didn't ask for. I didn't really want to go to India, but the group I was traveling with, they were surprised. They're like, well, you're a traveler. Why wouldn't you come to India? And so I did. And I spent about 4 weeks group traveling, and it was completely exhausting. And in that group travel, I met many people who would tell me, you probably know this from being in India. Everywhere you go, people invite you to come visit them. Oh, you must come to my home. Oh, you must come visit me here. And I would say, if you mean that, you better mean that, because I will come. I will come if you invite me. And
I think Indians are always serious about that.
Yeah. Like they don't want you to be alone. They want you to come to even if you're in the north and they live in the south, they don't care. They want you to come. So that's how the India adventure, the second year of travel turned into most of my time being in India. I spent 8 months then traveling through India and landed in Dharamshala, which is where I met you at the suggestion of someone I'd met in Goa. So I worked my way, Goa's in the south, all the way back up, and then ended up in Dharamshala. And at that point, I decided I was ready to just stay put for a little while. So that's when I decided to settle there. And that's when we met.
What fascinated you so much about Dharamshala? I mean, because you were like already for a while on the road, like to different places, like even places on the beach and also like the lake. But what was the point where you're thinking, that's a place where I can settle down for a while, or like I belong there?
I mean, one practical reason was I just was tired. I was exhausted and I needed a break from traveling.
Yeah.
But also there was the vibe. Like I had always been a beach person. So I was really surprised how attracted to the mountains I was. The Himalayas and the Dolomite Mountains that are in Himachal. They're the story that Shiva lives in those mountains, Lord Shiva, and Hindu god. And I believed that. Like I felt there was something there that I wanted to learn more about. And then another reason, which was unknown to me when I first went there, was that the Dalai Lama, it was the home of the Dalai Lama, His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So that became an opportunity to expand not just my spiritual journey, but my inquiry into Buddhism. You know, where else to study Buddhism than in the home of the Dalai Lama? Yeah. So I think that's also what called me to stay there longer, and expand my studies.
Yeah, we met also in the introduction course. So I think for both of us, it was like a very profound time where we learned a lot about ourselves, about Buddhism. So what would you say, like, was Buddhism teaching you, or what could you still use in your life or apply in your life? Yeah.
I had heard of Buddhism, before, and I had read some books, and I had even read some books by His Holiness, but I'd always thought it was a religion. And I was raised Catholic, called myself more spiritual than religious, but I'd always thought Buddhism was a religion. So it really wasn't until that intro course, that I learned it's a way of living, it's a way of life. It's a path to enlightenment and a path of spirituality. And a lot of the principles of it just resonated with how I'd already been living my life. Kindness, compassion. As a counselor, these were common principles in my counseling practice: empathy, compassion, also a power, like believing in a power greater than yourself, community, spirituality as a way of living, not a thing, but like as a way of being. So not something so much to do, but a way to be. So it really resonated with how I'd already been, thinking and living my life. So it was easy to just keep following the Buddhist path. I wouldn't say I'm a Buddhist officially, but I've definitely, subscribed to a Buddhist way of life and continue my studies in that direction.
There are so many things, I think, which we can learn and apply also in a very simple way, how not from a religious viewpoint, but really from a viewpoint how to live together, like how to live and behave in a community. I think this gives so many good advices and ideas. Yeah. Very cool. But you're not just studying Buddhism and applying this to your life. You also founded then your own brand. So maybe you can give us like a little deep dive into your journey as an entrepreneur, because it was also completely different than what you have done before, especially also in the country of India. So maybe if you want to share those insights with us.
Living in Dharamshala, we had the unique opportunity of being among the Indian culture, the Indian community, and the Tibetan culture. So there was the bringing together the, Hindu and Indian culture and the Tibetan Buddhist culture. So you were really living in a vortex again, so to speak. But one thing I was really drawn to, and where my compassion, that tugged at my heartstrings, I guess you can say, is how hard the women of of India, but particularly where I was living, were working to provide for their families, that their families would have a better way of living than they did. Maybe they'd have education, and they did a lot to support their families. And I wanted to give back to them in some way without just giving them money or without just giving them donations of sorts. So it was a selfish idea at first, but I became a little obsessed with block printing, which is a centuries old artisan craftsmanship of India, hand block printing. And I became a little obsessed with it after a trip to Jaipur, Rajasthan, little like further mid of the country. And I bought this beautiful fabric on a trip there, and I just wanted to do something with it. So I brought it to the lady sewers and the ladies who had been doing some sewing for me in the village I lived in, and or lived out near, and had them make some clothing from this fabric, for me. It was just for me. And I realized, if I can expand on this, buy more fabric, I'm supporting the hand block print industry. And if I can have the ladies sew more, then I'm contributing to them, right? Giving them money for the sewing and then continuing their livelihood. The more we did this, the more pants we made, then it became, well, if we can sell the pants, then there's more opportunity to make more pants. So it was called the Pants Project to start. And it was just a way to share the story of hand block printing and the story of women and who they are for their families, and give back to them, right? Like be able to contribute to them financially and contribute to them having a sustainable income, but also give them some training and development. So that after a year, the Pants Project as a test market, we sold 100 pairs of pants. And I could have stopped it there and said, wow, that was a lot of fun. That was a lot of learning. That had a lot of challenges. That was very inspirational to me. But I decided to now to expand it into a fashion brand and expand the number of women sewers we work with. We're now working with a self-help group that has over 100 women that work for the group, but about 4 ladies that do our sewing. And we put the project online, and we're going to expand into the U.S. this summer. We've now turned the Pants Project into a fashion brand called Green Terra Design, which has its own story. Green Terra, connected to Buddhism. So it has its own story as to why we chose that as the name of our brand.
Yeah, wow. So, very beautiful and so exciting. Maybe you could also just explain, I know it already because you told me, but what is so special about hand blocking? Because this is a very special technique, and as far as I know, it's especially used in the region in Rajasthan where Jaipur is located, and you brought it then to Dharamshala to use this technique. And yeah, it's very work with many details and has to be made handmade, right? When I remember it correctly.
Yeah, the fabric itself, the hand block process has many steps, many intricate steps. First, starting with making the hand block itself, which is carving patterns into wood, which can take 2 to 3 months to create. And then the process of hand stamping that pattern onto fabric, and then the dyeing of the fabric, and then the drying of the fabric. So I don't actually do the hand block printing. I rely on one of our fabric sources has been hand block printing for 8 generations as a family business, but 8 generations. So we import the fabric from them, and then we turn the fabric into the clothing. It is known in Rajasthan is known for hand block printing, and Jaipur specifically. But hand block printing is throughout India, and one of our future goals is to bring in different types of hand block. So the one we're currently working with is called Dabu, and we're featuring that in the launch of our brand, the Dabu process. But there's multiple processes and multiple hand block ways of doing hand block throughout the whole country. One of the challenges is because this process is so intricate and so time consuming that it's gone to through technology to screen printing because they can't find artisans to continue the process, because it's so labor intensive. So we're trying to preserve this centuries old tradition and keep it from going to a multiple produced, factory produced, screen printed, way of producing it, to keep it as a handmade process. So each piece of our clothing literally is not only handmade, but it's a piece of art because every piece of clothing is unique. Yeah.
Wow. That's very special. Wow. Very cool. We already talked about it in the pre-conversation, and of course, like when you talk about it, or when we, like, I noticed from my own stories, when we talk afterwards, tell this friends or colleagues or whatever, everything sounds like, wow, very exciting, adventurous and interesting. But actually, when you're on the way, in the journey, in the moment, and sometimes it's not that funny, it's actually the other way around. It's more challenging. It's like sometimes also very hard, even more than back home, even if you face their boredom or like loneliness. But traveling and especially starting a business in India brings lots of challenges. So maybe you can tell us more. How were your challenges? What was the hardest thing you experienced so far?
Yeah. Like you said, it sounds all glamorous, doesn't it? Like, look at me. I'm traveling and I've started a fashion brand and I'm giving back to the community. And that part of it is exciting and probably what keeps me inspired and motivated to continue. But there's a language barrier. Most of the women I work with do not speak English, although India is English-speaking country and English has is now taught in schools as the first language. Most of the women I'm working with, or most of the people I'm working with, do not speak English. So finding translation between myself and our sewing team has been one of the biggest challenges, but also one of the biggest rewards, like that we are able to communicate even though we speak two different languages. So it's a barrier, and it's takes more time to get things done. They're not using technology. They're used to sewing a certain way. I'm putting my arms out, but like the measurement from one wrist to the next wrist is how they measure a meter, So speaking, training and development when not being able to speak a language. But then when we do accomplish something, like last year, it took us 6 months to make patterns so that we could train multiple women, with patterns. I cried, the day that they sent me the pictures, the videos of the patterns being complete. We've had another challenge is money in India. It's not easy to do money transactions here. For foreigners, it's a cash country. You can't have a bank account as a foreigner. You can't, they're a very technologically advanced, GPay system. Like there's no flow of cash through the local people. So how to pay them, how to do banking, how to have access to money here in India has been a big challenge. Right now we're getting around that by setting up the company as an American company and then just doing transfers from US dollar to the Indian currency. That's been something that will be an ongoing challenge to get worked out, but is slowly getting worked out. And I think also another challenge is learning how to work. My Western culture mentality is productivity. My goals are pretty aggressive because I come from a Western background. And I've had to really learn how to, if I want to work with women in India and who they are for their families is what inspires me, then I need to learn to work around pregnancies, weddings, farming, sicknesses, because the women I'm working with, they are the pillars of their communities. So they're sewing my materials, but they're also sewing all the materials for everyone in their village. And they're taking care of everyone in their village. And I have to really learn how to be able to work around that. Their schedule, not mine. That slowed me down quite a bit. And something that I'm learning to see as a blessing. Yeah.
What was your biggest learning? Like for the last 3 years, maybe from all your traveling and also setting up the business and living in India, which is like, so far away from our culture. What is advantages and disadvantages, but at the same time it's also always interesting. And I guess like when I look at my experience, it's always like a big learning. But what was your biggest learning so far?
One thing I see everywhere I go and everywhere I've been is that regardless of our language or culture or educational background, we're all human beings. And most human beings want the same thing: to be happy, to be loved, to love and be loved, and to be part of a community or be part of something perhaps bigger than themselves, but definitely part of something. That's everywhere I've gone. And the biggest thing I've learned is, there's a lot of things I've learned, but there's where I am now in my learning process is to my faith and my trust in the universe, or trust in a higher power greater than myself, whatever you care to call that. God, gods. In India, there's many gods and goddesses, the Buddha, whatever you choose. I've got it that I'm not on my own. I think when I started this journey, I really felt isolated, but also really felt alone in that, like, it was only up to me. So I'd say that's the biggest thing I've gotten, is that I'm not alone. Our relationship is an example of that, like wherever you go, there's an opportunity to connect to other people and believe in that there's something greater than us out there, whatever you choose to call it.
Yeah, and it's always guiding us also, maybe not in the situation which are like from outside the best, but like afterwards when we reflect on it, or thinking about the experience or insights we got, and it was the right way. What would you say, like now you look back, to different experiences the last years, but also to long life, like raising up kids, living in the States, also doing your job there. What would you tell, like from your perspective now, the 18 years old Kim? Which advices would you give her? Like,
what would I tell 18-year-old Kim, and then what I might tell other 18-year-olds or people in their, beginning their journey of life, and just kind of getting present for a moment to, like, there's a saying that life is not about the destination, it's about the journey. And the older I get, or the longer I'm on this journey, I can look back and say, wow, like everything has been about the journey, not where I'm getting to or where I'm going to get to. And when I look back at 18-year-old me, I'm not much different than I was, when I was younger. My personality is the same. The way I think is the same. The way I experience life is the same. What I enjoy is very similar. So I would say, stop trying to fix yourself. Like, there's nothing wrong with you. There really, and if your life is about trying to fix yourself or get somewhere or get to perfection, or someday when I have this, or someday when it's right, then I'll have what I want. Don't do that. Just enjoy every minute of the precious life that you've been given, or the minutes that you can enjoy as much as you can, because there's nothing wrong with you. There's nowhere to get. There's nowhere to be except, right here in this moment. I think that would have given me a lot more ease in my life, a lot more peace of mind, if I wasn't on the trajectory to perfection. I didn't really get to my maybe 40s, perfection is not a place to get to. It doesn't exist. Only it's created by me,
And what is perfect? Yeah, that's also the point. It's always also just a perspective on something,
Yeah.
Perspective on it, or maybe expectations from someone else, But you're not tired of all you have so many things in your mind. So you told me also in our pre-conversation that you have like so many releases the next upcoming months. Maybe you want to tell us about those. What new projects you have, really, or the projects are already finished, but they want to come out in this world.
I know. I don't know how this happened, that everything happened at once, but I left my home. I started the travel journey February 2022. So generally the end of February or March, I celebrate the anniversary of my traveling. So March was the 3-year anniversary. And then each year of my traveling, I've released a poetry book, which is really the way I documented my journey. So each year I release a poetry book that is poems written during the previous year. So that is coming out a little delayed, but coming out this month is the release of my 3rd poetry book, Chasing Sunsets 3, which was written during my time in India. And it also highlights my journey. Chasing Sunsets 1 was finding me. The first year was a year of self-discovery. The second year was meeting me. So now that I've had all this self-discovery, I'm like meeting myself for the first time in a new way. And in my travels through India, it's being me. One thing India is accepting. I've had multiple opportunities to just be 100% myself, here. So this is, the third book is Being Me. And then we're also celebrating the 1-year anniversary of the Pants Project. And we're celebrating that, just by asking our clients and people who worked with us in the last year to acknowledge our anniversary. But we've also launched a Kickstarter, which is really, it's a crowdfunding platform, but it's really a way to share and tell your story with the world. And with the launch of the Kickstarter, we're launching the brand, Green Terra Design. And that brand will then make its debut in the U.S. this summer when I return to Philadelphia in July or August. I think that's everything, Catherine.
It's already a lot, no? But you can add something, don't worry.
Like, what?
Thank
what
you
else?
for sharing. Yeah, I will
Yeah.
also add all the links in the show notes afterwards so that
Okay.
everyone can get to know about it. That they don't have to Google it or ChatGPT it. Just click on the link. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your time, for sharing all your insights. It's, I think, so inspiring and a very lovely journey.
Thank
I
you.
think, your soul has chosen a very special way to get all those experiences, and I think that's very, very good. And also, thank you for sharing everything. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's really a trip down memory lane, to recall, wow, I did all that, or I'm doing all that. And you could also follow on my Instagram. I'll give you the link for that. That I tend to do a recap every year, of my travels the year before that. And it was really more for me to document and keep track of, I'll go back and read that every once in a while and be like, oh, wow, I forgot I did that, or I forgot I grew in that way, or I forgot about those people I met, or even a country, I forgot I visited that country. So I would say, for anyone that is doing this type of journey, to document it in some way, whether it's your own journals or a book, like you're doing, or podcasts, but some way document the journey for yourself so you have something to look back on.
And I think it's always, I love it also when I leave a country or leave a year, I always reflect for myself and write it down, because then it's also like a way of letting go and keep it in your heart, but at the same time that it's making space for something new also, that you don't be so attached to all the experiences. Or sometimes you think, oh, that was such a nice time, but actually it gets so many new times, which are also very special. Yeah,
it's definitely a challenge, right? Like if you're going to different countries, the language barrier, and you're leaving one country and going to another and a different culture. Yeah. So the practice of completing one journey so that you can create space for the new journey to show up.
Right. The new journey of life. Yeah.
The next chapter.
The next chapter. Yeah. Let's see what will happen this year. It's still many months to the end. Yeah. Okay, Kim. Thank you so much. Thank you. Greetings to India.
Thank you, Catherine.
You're currently in Beer, no? So enjoy your time there and have a good time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm really, really honored to be here with you and be part of what you're up to.
Herzlich willkommen zurück aus der Folge mit Kim Engstrom. Ich hoffe, du hast für dich einige interessante Impulse mitnehmen können. Und wenn dir die Folge gefallen hat, dann freuen wir uns über einen Kommentar von dir, entweder auf Spotify oder auf Instagram. Und damit du keine Podcast-Folge von Love, Life and Other Stories mehr verpasst, abonniere am besten den Podcast direkt. Dann wirst du immer benachrichtigt, sobald eine neue Folge veröffentlicht wird. Ich packe dir alle Informationen über Kims Arbeit in den Shownotes, besonders jetzt auch zur Veröffentlichung ihrer neuen Brand. Und ansonsten, wenn du dich für systemische Aufstellungsarbeit interessierst oder du einfach mentale Begleitung in den nächsten Monaten an deiner Seite haben möchtest oder du dir schon seit ganz langem einfach mal eine Auszeit gönnen möchtest, an dir arbeiten möchtest und ja, einfach mal in einer richtig tollen Umgebung aufwachen möchtest, dann schau super gerne auf meiner Webseite vorbei, www.katrinpreisner.com. Da findest du alle meine Angebote, sei es angefangen von der Empowerment Journey, ein 3-monatiges Programm, wo du 1:1 von mir begleitet wirst, gleichzeitig Workshops besuchst und Teil von einer Gemeinschaft bist, wo wir uns gegenseitig über Herausforderungen, Themen, die uns beschäftigen und Themen, die uns auch begeistern, austauschen können. Ansonsten habe ich bereits Termine für Retreats, einmal in Indien und einmal in Österreich. Schau einfach auf meiner Webseite vorbei. Dort findest du alle relevanten Informationen oder ganz einfach auf meinem Instagram-Kanal Heart and Mind Journey. Ansonsten wünsche ich dir jetzt erstmal einen ganz, ganz tollen Tag. Fühl dich von Herzen umarmt. Alles Liebe, deine Katrin.